Welcome to the United States of Small Business, a podcast where the essence of American entrepreneurship is celebrated in every episode. With host John Quick at the helm, join us as we embark on a journey through the heart of the nation, uncovering the inspiring stories of small business owners from coast to coast. Experience the vibrant energy of bustling cities and the serene beauty of small towns, all while discovering how individuals are turning their entrepreneurial dreams into reality, even against the greatest odds. Each episode brings you face to face with the dreamers, creators, and doers who form the economic backbone of our country, all sharing their spirit of innovation and resilience. Whether you are in the early stages of sowing the seeds for your own business, scaling new heights in your current venture, or simply captivated by tales of grit and triumph, you are in the right place. Tune in on platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and beyond. For deeper insights and to connect with the heart and soul of America's main streets, visit UnitedStatesOfSmallBusiness.com. Subscribe to United States of Small Business with host John Quick now and be inspired by the powerful stories of entrepreneurship, community, and the unwavering pursuit of the American dream. Begin your journey of inspiration with us today.
Welcome to the United States of Small Business podcast, where we celebrate the spirit of American entrepreneurship and craftsmanship. I'm your host, John Quick. Today, we're joined by Josh Smith, co-founder and master bladesmith of Montana Knife Company. From a young age, Josh harnessed his passion for bladesmithing, which ultimately led him to establish the Montana Knife Company. At Montana Knife Company, they craft high-quality American-made knives designed with hunters and outdoorsmen in mind. Join us as Josh shares the journey of building Montana Knife Company from the ground up, his commitment to quality, and how the Montana Knife Company is keeping the American dream alive through traditional craftsmanship and innovative practices. Get ready to be inspired by a true story of passion, persistence, and sharp blades. Without further ado, Josh, welcome to the United States of Small Business podcast.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, this will be fun. I'm excited to hear a little bit about your story and your company's journey. First, let's start off. How did the Montana Knife Company start? Give us that story. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, kind of a Cliff Notes version. I was a custom knife maker forever. I started making knives when I was 11, and I made custom knives full time through my 20s. And then when the economy of 08, 09 kind of got bad, I actually went to work for the local power company, became a journeyman lineman for about 10 years. But I had this dream of Montana Knife Company. I registered the name when I was 19. But I finally decided when I was 39 in 2020 to start it. And really, it was more in 2019. I kind of started making some prototypes and thinking about it. Early 2020, early February is when I decided to get serious about it. And then about 2 weeks later, COVID took over the world. And I just decided to kind of ignore COVID, frankly, and chase my dream. I kept working through 2020. We launched our website in July. And actually kind of my business partner does the marketing stuff, does the website and whatnot. We became business partners that fall. And from there, I quit my job right around January 1st of 21. And that's really when we were both kind of like, okay, we're all in, we're doing this. And it just grew from there.
That's awesome. So did you start with one knife? If somebody goes onto your website now, you have a plethora of knives, apparel. I see seasoning on there. There's lots of things that you all offer now. Tell me what it was like to start. You start the business and it seems like it's grown very quickly. Tell me about that kind of journey and process.
Yeah, it was in the beginning, it was some prototypes trying to figure out exactly which knife I wanted to launch the company with. I figured you only get one chance to make a first impression, right? And so then once I decided to really do the company, I started making, I did a run of 200 knives. And I thought that was enough knives to teach me what I didn't know, which was pretty much everything. I'd never made knives on a production scale. My knives that I made as a custom maker were very high end and more like artwork. So I started learning through those first 200 knives just how tough it was going to be to scale and the way I was doing it. I was hand grinding all those handles and just a lot of things that were not the right way. And so I was doing constant research, constantly looking up things online, asking questions. And then every time I did a run of about 200 knives, I would change something that I was doing and just trying to attack like which part of the process is the most time consuming or I'm worst at, and try to fix that. And then just attack the worst thing I'm at every time. And I mean, we're literally still doing that today.
That's awesome. So one of the things I notice on your website is a lot of the stuff is made here in the U.S. How important is that for you and your business partner to, you know, be a company that makes things still here in the U.S.?
Well, that was the whole premise of the business, honestly. You know, the knives had to be 100% made in America, sourcing materials and everything in America. And so that was really what people were telling me, you know, other knife makers and whatnot. When I had this idea back in 18 and 19, they were like, you know, you can't make a hunting knife company in the United States. Like you're going to have to source from China to be competitive. And I completely disagreed with that. I thought Americans were actually looking for American made products. And frankly, I knew nothing about China. I knew I could make them. I didn't know how to source and do any of that. So, and it's proven to be true. Our growth of our company is largely due to the fact that we're American made. We've told the story. We've brought customers along for the ride. I've showed them, you know, the difficulties, the pain points, and it's really, I think, a big part of why we're succeeding.
And my guess is yes, but have you seen that customers are willing to pay a little bit more to get that quality product that is made here in the U.S.?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's 100%. You know, we don't sell the cheapest knife. Now they're not crazy expensive, you know, $200, $300, $350 for a knife is not cheap, but it's also not unobtainable for people. And for sure, there's people that get on and comment and say, well, you know, I can buy this one here for $19. And it's like, that's fine. Like, go do that. You know, there's 300 million Americans. Not every one of them are going to be our customer. Right. But I think there's a significant amount of people in this country that are willing to pay just a little bit more, pay a little bit of a premium. And they also see now, I think they're starting to see they can send their knives back to us to sharpen them. And we do that for free. We warranty. You read through our reviews and see how many 5-star reviews we have on our website and how many people are talking about our customer service. And to me, honestly, it shouldn't actually be as a big a deal as it is. Companies should have good customer service. They should stand behind their product. Like this shouldn't be a thing, but unfortunately it is. And so the fact that when you buy something from us, we're going to ship it that day or the latest the next day. We're not going to sit on it for 5 or 6 days and wait for some outsourced shipping company to ship your product 5 days later. If we do mess up and you send us an email, we're going to fix it that day. We read all of our emails every single day. We action those. And then if you do send your knife in to get it sharpened, because every knife is going to go dull, and if you can't sharpen your knife or you're not feeling comfortable with that, every knife that hits our door to get sharpened gets sharpened the same day we receive it and mailed back that day or the next day, depending on the time of day we receive it. So again, warranty your product, but not over like a month. We're not going to keep your chef set from your kitchen for a month, right? We're going to have it for less than a day and we're going to get it back to you.
That's awesome. Yeah. One of the things that sticks out in just kind of reading about the Montana Knife Company online and your website is you guys really care about the customer. You just talked a little bit about it there, but how important is that for your customers to have a good customer experience? Because I think today, you know, in today's day and age, people want to make a quick buck. And, you know, a lot of people don't really care if a customer doesn't like their $5 widget because they're going to sell a bunch more on Facebook with their Facebook ads. How important is for you to keep and retain your customers?
Well, I'm trying to grow a generational brand here. I'm not interested in growing this thing up just to sell it. So growing up a 50 or $100 million company and hitting a number and then bailing out and not needing to deal with it for the rest of my life is not the goal. The goal is to have a generational brand that someday my kids and grandkids are involved in helping run. And so if you're going to have that, you have to stand behind your product and you have to take care of your customer. And to be honest, in the first couple of years, we couldn't afford any advertising dollars. We couldn't run ads. Okay. So the only way we could grow was through word of mouth. How good is the product and how well do we take care of the customer? Do we do what we say we're going to do? So, to me, it's everything. And I think it's a big reason for our growth. And again, I think it's why people are willing to pay just a little bit more, knowing that they're not going to buy this knife and then throw it away in a year or two. They're going to buy this knife and use it for decades.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the hustle and grind of being an entrepreneur, because I think, in today's day and age, again, I think there's folks that they, day one out of college, they want to get a job and be the CEO of a company, after working there a week, or they think they're going to make, $1 million on TikTok overnight. You alluded to having started making knives when you were 19, and it's been a journey for you now to then start this company and have it be success. Talk to me a little bit about the work ethic that goes into starting something that eventually becomes successful.
Man, it takes a ton of work. It takes a ton of patience. It takes a lot of learning from your mistakes. I started making knives at 11 and here I am 43, and it just feels now we're becoming a successful brand. But all those years trained me how to talk to customers. It trained me on, the nuances of what we do, of metallurgy with knives and edge geometry and how to make a quality product. And you're right. People need to trust the process. But if you have passion for what you're doing and to me, it's like that, that old adage of like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time, right? Every day I woke up and just tried to solve the biggest problem I had that day, knowing that I couldn't solve all the problems. And you just keep doing that and doing the right thing. It adds up to being successful. And I'll say, people ask me now, like, see me traveling all over the country, doing some media stuff, all the stuff we're trying to do with build buildings and hire people. And, well, how are you keeping up with the grind, or is it wearing you out or whatever? And it's like, man, these are the problems you want when you start a company. We're busy. It's good problems. Go talk to a roofer and ask him how he's feeling in July when he's on his 10th roof of the month. That's hard work, man. This isn't hard work. It's mentally grueling. But I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm doing a lot of sitting at a desk and trying to solve problems. But these are great problems. These are problems I've dreamed of having for 30 years. So I'm not about to complain or compare myself to someone who's doing actual hard labor.
So who's somebody that you've looked up to along the years? There's probably lots of folks, as you just said, that kind of want to pick your brain and hear your success stories, and they may look up to you. Who's been a hero in your life and why over the years?
Well, I mean, I think one, it started with my dad as a young kid from a work ethic standpoint. He was a blue collar guy, owns an excavation company, just a grinder. I mean, up, 5 o'clock in the morning, to bed at 10 or 11 at night, still having to doing the business paperwork side of it, plus do the hard labor side, plus do all the mechanicing on his equipment. So it was my dad from a work ethic standpoint. From a business standpoint of growing a big brand, it would actually be somebody like Evan Hafer at Black Rifle Coffee. I mean, that's a guy that's just grew up in a small logging town in Idaho. I grew up in a small logging town in Montana. He became became a Green Beret, got into the Army, and got out of the military, just a regular veteran like the rest of them, right? But he decided to start a coffee brand focused around black rifles. And here one day, years later, he hangs a banner from Wall Street with a black AK-47 and Black Rifle Coffee from it and goes public.
Pretty awesome.
Tell me if you'd have said back in 2012, there's a dude from Idaho that's going to start a coffee company with an AK-47 as a logo, and he's going to hang a giant banner from Wall Street, you'd be like, yeah, that ain't happening. So I found that very motivating of like, well, if that dude can do that with coffee, we don't need a coffee company. We don't need more coffee. And frankly, the world probably didn't need another knife company. So if he can do that with a coffee company, then why can't I do that with a knife company?
Yeah. So do you think the American dream is still alive and well? I think, America for the last however many years has had a mantra of somebody can make something out of nothing. Seems like the economy is not all that awesome right now, but do you think the American dream is still alive and well for folks out there that are maybe aspiring to be entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I 100% I do. And it's hard. There's no doubt it's hard. But was it easy for somebody in our grandparents' generation coming out of the Depression? Was it easy for my parents' generation who in their early 20s, it was 1980 and 81, and it was 24% interest on a loan, right? Has it ever actually been easy, right? It's always been hard. The circumstances and what's hard at the time are different, but 100%, we live in the freest, most amazing country on the planet. And we have things like social media, and social media is much like a gun. I compare it to a gun. It can be used for positive or it can be used for negative. It's a tool or it can be used as a weapon. And social media, when I look at when I was making knives in the late 90s, mid 90s, if I wanted anyone to see my knives, I had to get lucky to get someone to maybe want to write a magazine article about me, or I had to buy an ad in a magazine. And magazines, frankly, a lot of magazines actually controlled kind of who wins and loses, and it depended on how many ads you buy if they wanted to write articles about you. Now, I can turn around, I can take a photo, I can post it, and I can show it to 100,000 people and tell them my story. So we've largely grew our company through telling people our story of Montana Knife Company through social media. So people have the most powerful marketing tool known to mankind called, frankly, the internet. It's a combination of social media, email addresses, texts, right? These are all things that we didn't have in the 90s. It's all things that our grandparents didn't have. How do you grow a brand in 1970 starting out? And, in the middle of an oil embargo and the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so today it's Ukraine and it's China and it's whatever. Point is has it ever been easy? And I would argue it actually is probably easier than ever today to reach people. And so I think the American dream is alive and well. The problem is people are going to look at Montana Knife Company and they're going to go, oh, look at that brand. I want to be just like that. And then a year later, they're like, it's just too much work. I don't want to do it. And it's like, hey man, this was over decades, right? That this ended up getting built. So it takes time, takes commitment. Get up earlier, go to bed later, work on Saturday. Don't go to the football game. Work on Sunday. Put in the hours.
Do you think that things like I like what you're saying. It's resonating. I think folks that are listening to the podcast will definitely be excited to take a listen to this whole thing, because I think, in today's day and age, people get things like participation trophies, right? And they haven't really found out what it really takes to get first place. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, when you and I were probably growing up, you either got first or last. Yeah. There wasn't all these things that gave you awards for being ninth place. Do you think that kind of culture has a negative effect on stuff like this, where you really need to put your head down and go work for 100 hours a week?
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, I've raised 4 kids. I just had my second one turn 18 yesterday. They were big in sports. My daughter ended up actually with a full ride basketball scholarship. My other kids are athletic, but it teaches them how to deal with adversity, teaches them how to deal with a coach who's a jerk, right? Teaches them how to deal with teammates that maybe don't want to work as hard as them, or maybe their teammates work harder and they have to keep up with them. Teaches them adversity, how to lose with grace. It's easy to have a good attitude when you're winning. And several times I've had to get on my kids and be like, hey, when your coach comes to the mound, don't start complaining about the umpire and having an attitude. You didn't throw enough strikes. You sucked tonight. That's how it is. You have to own that. And the reason probably that you weren't as good tonight is because when's the last time you threw balls at home at your net? A couple months ago? Of course you're not going to throw strikes, right? And so I believe the everybody gets a trophy thing is absolutely a problem, because when you get into real life, it's about how do you lose with grace? How do you learn? How do you have a learning attitude? How do you learn how to win with grace? We could be sitting here saying we're the greatest thing ever and we're growing this great brand, but I look at how far we have to go. I look at what we're not. I look at what we're not doing well. And we're constantly trying to attack the next thing and never settle for enough. That's, I tell my boy, you might be the best player on your team, but are you the best player in the county? Are you the best in the state? There's always somebody better. There's always somebody bigger, faster, stronger. And so, it's, I believe the free market is about competition. And, frankly, what was it? 10 years ago today, I was living in a camper in my driveway. My house was burned to the ground. Had 4 kids in a camper. I was an apprentice lineman. I was broke as hell, divorced. I couldn't afford a pickup older than newer than 1979. That thing broke down on me and my family up on a mountain pass. And 10 years later, sitting here with 56 employees in Montana Knife Company, right? It's about
pretty awesome.
It's about you have to just keep going. You have to keep working at it, and you have to dig your way out of a hole and take your lumps, and also understand that, like, where we're at winning today, I'm sure we're going to have some lumps that are coming that we don't know what those are. That's what makes life exciting. And those downtimes, like living in your camper with 4 kids with your house in ashes next to you, makes days like today feel really good, and you appreciate them.
So what's a big dream for Montana Knife Company? Do you want to be the biggest knife company in the US? What are some of your big aspirations?
Yeah, I don't care if we're the biggest. I almost would guess that if we were to try to become the biggest, and I don't know if this is for sure, we would probably have to compromise some values I'm not willing to compromise. So I don't really care if we're the biggest. If that's like a net worth or a revenue number that we would have to hit to become king, that might have to happen through sourcing things from China and whatever. I want to be the best, and that's attainable. And that's also subjective. Even when we get to where I think we're the best, there'll be somebody on the internet saying we're not the best. But I want to take care of our customers better than anyone else. I want to pass down a brand potentially to my kids someday that it's legendary. That's, you look at like Leupold in the hunting space, or Nosler. Leupold's been around, I think, 116 years, and it's a legendary name, and they don't do everything perfect. They have their ups and downs, but they withstand the test of time, and they're still around. They're still highly respected. The money part of it and some of that stuff isn't, yes, it's nice to have a little bit of money. It's nice to retire. I hope I retire someday. But in the end, I'm gonna die. Like, it's not gonna matter, right? What I would love to know is that I haven't passed down my kids a pile of money. I'd actually prefer to pass them down a pile of responsibility, that they have to keep a brand that's highly respected going. And if they do that, they'll do well in their lives and they'll make some money. But they're gonna have to earn it, and they're gonna have to keep it there.
That's awesome. Well, Josh, 20 minutes has gone by in a flash here. Do you have any last minute thoughts before we head off?
No, man, I think, I want to tell people, if they have dreams, if they have hobbies they want to turn into their career someday, get up earlier, go to bed later, keep trusting in it, keep learning, keep asking questions, and make your hobby make you have to quit your job to where it's getting that busy. But I want people to feel encouraged that, if we can do this with a knife company in the hunting space, the hunting space is actually tiny. The amount of people who own a hunting license in America is very, very, very small demographic, and we're succeeding. And so if we can do it in this space, it's possible in about any space. But that's really all I've got, man. But I really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. For folks that maybe just caught the tail end, I want to encourage you to go back and listen to the whole thing. Josh from Montana Knife Company, you get to hear his story and how he really hustled and grinded to having a brand now that's recognized by hunters as really just an amazing knife company. And so I'll put all the links in the podcast description. And I hope everybody has a phenomenal rest of their week. Until next time, I'm John Quick from the United States of Small Business Podcast. Thanks so much, Josh.
Thank you very much.